traveling by road from Uganda to Rwanda has been quite difficult owing to a number of restrictions put in place by the government of Rwanda. Initially, the Rwanda National Revenue Authority issued a statement informing the public that road rehabilitation works were underway on the Rwanda side of the Katuna border, and they also advised that other border crossings be used, but these other posts were also initially subjected to restrictions. Presently, some private individuals are able to travel from Uganda to Rwanda, but cargo vehicles are facing a much harder time. However, all Rwandan citizens are being prevented from entering Uganda. According to the Rwandan Minister of Foreign Affairs, the restrictions in Rwanda from Rwandans entering Uganda have been put in place to protect them from harassment, illegal detainment, and even torture by the Ugandan authorities. And the current situation at the Uganda-Rwanda border is just the latest in a series of events that point towards a deterioration of relations between the two countries. Tonight, we would like to find out what exactly has led to the state of affairs. And of course, with me in studio is Mr. Arthur, Dr. Arthur Bainomgisha, an expert on conflict resolution, who's also the Executive Director of Advocates Coalition for Development and Environment. And I'm also informed that actually he has been worked in Rwanda specifically to try to address issues to do with conflicts that are within the region. Welcome to our studios tonight.
Thank you.
We are happy to have you here.
Thank you.
And most especially because you're going to give us a highlight on what exactly is happening. According to you, considering the fact that you are a conflict person, you love to deal with these issues, what is your assessment of what is of the issue of Rwanda and Uganda border?
Thank you very much. I think the conflict between Uganda and Rwanda may need to be traced as far back as the Kisangani crashes. Great allies, of course, you know the role of Uganda in the liberation of Rwanda, which led to actually current president being in power. But let alone when the war in Congo pitted the two allies and they fought each other around 2000, it looks for sure that the deeper, the root causes of the conflict in Kisangani, because there were three crashes, Kisangani 1, Kisangani 2, and Kisangani 3, they have never been resolved. And actually, when allies fight, it becomes very difficult to resolve that conflict. But to look at the issues that have been raised, of course, alleged support of Uganda to the dissidents that are opposed to the regime in Rwanda, that has come out very clearly. But also the arrests and the harassment of the Rwandans in Uganda, it has also come out very clearly. And the espionage, of course, in the part of Uganda. Uganda has arrested actually some of these people. It has also come out. But I think the root causes have to go back, they go back to the Kisangani clashes, when the two allies disagreed on the way Congo had to be governed and ended up supporting different groups in the Congo. And I think the clashes also had a lot of serious ramifications, including a lot of losses on both sides, and those have not been addressed. But I think also, again, the whole issue of Rwanda, President Kagame has since done very well, and so has President Museveni. And both of them have a history of being liberators, they are war heroes. And so, and now I think they seem to be competing. There is some semblance of competition for regional hegemony. Who should be now the leader? Rwanda has done very well under President Kagame. Uganda has done well, but also President Museveni has been actually a regional leader. And I think what we see now is like a struggle, competition actually for regional supremacy. And unfortunately, in this struggle, both countries don't have the capacity to be regional powers. Because like Tanzania would be, naturally has that the regional hegemony. Apparently, Tanzania is not into that. But Rwanda is so small, Uganda is so small, but with strong leaders with a history of being freedom fighters. But they are too stronger than their countries. So what we see now is the struggle for regional kind of power. And I think the consequences are too much on the countries which are supposed to be allies, it also has undermined regional integration. Because the two leaders actually have been at the forefront, not only for East African integration, but for African integration. And President Kagame has done well. President Museveni has done well in terms of liberation of actual Africa. He's a Pan-Africanist. Kagame is a Pan-Africanist. But of course, now for the two of them to fail, to work together to resolve their issues, actually now puts into question their commitment to the Pan-African agenda. And so one of my colleagues actually has published a book, Why Africa Fails. When these countries are doing well and then now begin now to undermine each other, it reverses all the socio-economic and political gains that Rwanda has achieved, Uganda has achieved, and indeed the whole region. And you see, the sufferers are the citizens of the region. But also Africa becomes a laughing stock. I mean, conflict is part and parcel of human life. I can assure you that any society without conflict is actually sick. But it's because human beings are endowed with the power of reason. When conflicts come, we should be able to resolve them.
In fact, I want to ask you, do you think there might be some merit in what the Rwandan Foreign Minister is complaining about Uganda? From what you already said, we have about 3 points that he mentioned. Do you think there is some merit in what he mentioned?
The things that he's talking about, I think,
because when he talks about Rwandan nationals being arrested in Uganda, do we also want to say there are no Ugandan nationals at any point arrested in Rwanda?
Actually, there is nothing to hide. Everything is now in black and white. Ugandans have been also harassed in Rwanda. Rwandans have been harassed here. There is a conflict. It is a latent conflict, but it is actually moving towards an eruption, an overt conflict. And I think what we should be discussing now is the need for conflict resolution. But the conflict resolution actually now you remember that there was even a meeting when the president of Rwanda came here, and he met our president. But I think it remains between the two. And I think the conflict between Rwanda and Uganda should not be left to the two protagonists, because there are two. And actually, President Kagame, the interview that he gave the East African, he talks about the egos. So powerful people, full of themselves. And I think there's a need to internationalize. There's a need to regionalize this conflict and be able to reach the deeper causes of this conflict and transform it. And the sooner we do it, the better, because you can see the trade war is affecting the economies of both countries, small countries with a lot of poverty, poor people, and they have been making strides. And now these strides are being reversed. But what do other people think about these former friends fighting and destroying actually what they have built all their lives? And so I think in terms of conflict resolution methods, one, I think, is that there's a need actually to broaden the participation in terms of conflict resolution. The East African community seems to be actually unable to do that, because actually the two leaders are stronger in the East African community. And because of that, we may need to broaden it to bring in the African Union, especially the African Peace and Security Council, the UN Security Council, but also friends. The friends of these two countries, the Commonwealth. What are you doing? Because you see,
in fact, before you go to the other bodies that may come in and help Rwanda and Uganda resolve these issues, in the short term, for instance, in the meantime, what do you think
now cannot be allowed to cross. But what about Rwanda and Uganda? We have relatives across the border. And now this, so the international community, but also test the East African community to work, test the organs, let it work. And of course, President Kagame being, sometimes when you are in conflict, when you are a part of conflict, it's difficult to resolve it. Now allowing a third party that you trust, both of them trust. I'm looking in the region. Apparently, these are senior leaders. So you look at other people.
In fact, my next question was, if the two leaders, they're the strongest leaders that we so far have in the East African community, how will the other countries or the other leaders in other countries come through and help the two powerful East African leaders?
And that's why I'm talking about, sometimes in situations like this one, a friend could emerge. I can, for example, Tanzania, where President Magufuli is relatively new, but actually there are settled elders in Tanzania that actually know even these two leaders. I can even think about Judge Warioba. He's retired, old, with history, very close friendship with President Museveni and the region. And actually, when Nyerere actually became sick, he took over, and of course they handed over to President Museveni. He was very, very instrumental. He's a former Prime Minister, Vice President, Minister of Defense. Those are some of the people who want peace that actually could be relied on. But Tanzania is also a natural hegemonic power. And so it can also be relied upon actually to play a role, a neutral role as a mediator in the short run, because it would also be very prudent for the Africans to try to solve their problems by their own. Because when you bring in the outsiders, sometimes the outsiders tend to stay. So I think let's try to resolve this. As I said, it is okay. I'm not so frustrated that this conflict has come up. It is part and parcel of human life. But you see, the wisdom that God has endowed with us gives us that power to resolve them and move on. Actually, from this conflict, these two countries may emerge as the greatest of friends, and actually could act as a catalyst for greater change, for greater transformation of the region.
Thank you, Dr. Arthur, for coming to our studios today, and of course for helping us understand exactly what is happening between Rwanda and Uganda. And we continue to pray and we continue to hope that the situation or the conflict will not explode or will not become bigger or will not lead to the loss of lives and lots of property. That was it in Talk of the Nation. We'll now go in for another commercial break, but we'll be back.
Are you in Kampala, East, West, Central, or the northern parts of Uganda? Daily Monitor has got you covered every weekday with revamped regional news coverage. Grab yourself a copy and know what's happening.